During a weekend when 5 college students, Xavier, Martin, Dana, Kurt, and Emily, decided to explore an old abandoned house deep in the woods, they expected nothing more than a little thrill and adventure. However, their excitement quickly turned into a terrifying nightmare. The house had no map, no cell signal, and was filled with old furniture that seemed normal at first glance, but a deeper look revealed something far more sinister. Hidden within the house, they discovered a dungeon entrance that mysteriously opened on its own when an old painting was moved. Driven by curiosity, they descended into the darkness and found themselves in a basement filled with eerie artifacts, ancient scrolls, dusty books, magical squares, and strange objects that seemed centuries old. Each student was drawn to different items, unaware that touching them had already sealed their fate. Unbeknownst to them, a secret organization was watching their every move from a high-tech underground base. This group had one goal: to manipulate events and ensure a ritual was completed. The objects in the basement were not just relics, they were keys to summoning horrific monsters. Dana, fascinated by an old diary, unknowingly read aloud a passage in Greek, which summoned an undead girl named Elisa and the cursed Rebecca family from a forgotten village. As the students continued their carefree night, 2 of them, Kurt and Emily, sneaked away into the forest for some private time, not realizing they were now part of a horrifying spectacle. The organization observing them ensured that the couple would lower their guard by releasing a chemical agent into the air, making them more reckless. Just as things intensified, a massive undead creature emerged from the darkness and brutally attacked them. Emily was the first victim, her neck savagely bitten as she screamed in terror. As per the ritual, her blood was collected and poured onto an ancient stone statue, fulfilling part of the deadly prophecy. Meanwhile, Martin sensed that something was wrong. He stepped outside, only to be greeted by complete silence and an eerie stillness in the woods. When he finally stumbled upon the gruesome remains of Emily, panic set in. He rushed back into the house, yelling for the others. "Something happened to Emily. We have to find her," he shouted, his voice shaking. The group barely had time to process what was happening before more monsters started closing in. Xavier and Dana barricaded the windows, but the undead creatures had already broken through. Dana desperately pounded on the basement door, hoping to find a way out. Just as they thought they were safe, another creature attacked, decapitating one of them in a single swift motion. Dragged away, disappearing into the darkness. The organization monitoring them knew that if even one survivor remained, the entire ritual would fail. To prevent this, they made sure the remaining students had no escape. The only way out was across a deep canyon, and Kurt, an experienced extreme sports biker, believed he could jump it. With all his strength, he rode his motorcycle at full speed toward the gap, but just as he was mid-air, an invisible force slammed him back, sending him plummeting into the abyss. His death was confirmed as his blood filled yet another section of the ritual's stone carving. Now, only 2 remained, Martin and Dana. The realization hit them hard: something far bigger was at play, and they were merely pawns in a twisted game. With their last hope gone, they knew they had no choice but to return to the house and face whatever was waiting for them. As soon as Dana finished speaking, a hidden knife suddenly slid out from the car window, and before anyone could react, the vehicle plunged into the lake. Dana was lucky to survive, managing to crawl to shore, gasping for breath, but she had no time to recover. A beast hunter named Kurt was waiting for her. He wasn't dead yet. He was still coming after her. It looked like Dana was his final target. If all 5 of them died, the ritual would be complete. Meanwhile, back at the secret facility, the people monitoring the situation had already started celebrating. They popped open champagne, confident that their yearly mission was now complete. They could finally relax until the next ritual began the following year. This same ceremony was happening in different parts of the world, each with a unique method, but the outcome was always the same. People were trapped and killed for the ritual's success. However, their celebration was short-lived. Suddenly, the red phone in the control room rang. The entire room fell silent. The person in charge picked up the phone, his face turning pale as he listened. It was a call from their superiors. The voice on the other end warned them not to celebrate too soon. The ritual was not complete. Dana was still alive, but more importantly, someone else had also survived. The staff panicked and turned to the monitors. They saw that what they thought was a corpse was actually moving. Just when Dana was about to be killed, Xavier suddenly appeared. He had survived. Nobody had expected Xavier to still be alive. Dana and Xavier had no time to waste. They had to get out. The hunter tried to attack again, but Dana grabbed a piece of wood and knocked him back into the water. Using this chance, she and Xavier ran as fast as they could toward an old tomb. Xavier led the way, guiding Dana inside. As they caught their breath, they suddenly noticed something strange: a large hole in the ground. A lift was sitting beneath a tree, as if someone had placed it there on purpose. It seemed clear that someone had been sent up through this system. Desperate for answers, Dana and Xavier stepped onto the lift, and it began to descend slowly. The deeper they went, the darker it got. The elevator shifted directions and kept moving downward, and although they couldn't see much in the darkness, something felt off. Dana pressed against the glass, trying to get a better look, when suddenly, a monstrous wolf-like creature appeared out of nowhere, snarling at them from the other side of the glass. Both of them jumped back in terror. But that was only the beginning. As the elevator continued moving, they saw more and more horrifying creatures locked in cages, each one worse than the last. And then, Dana's eyes landed on something truly nightmarish, a pale, eerie figure holding a glowing sphere. It was a hellbound spirit master, a creature unlike anything she had ever seen before. This was a huge mistake. It turned out that everything had been planned from the start. Emily patted the glass in sorrow, unable to understand why this was happening or why they had to die. As the camera pulled back, all the monsters in the base seemed confused as well. The two high-ranking officials had never faced an invasion like this before, and to ensure the ritual continued, they had no choice but to send security forces to intervene. According to the ritual's rules, one had to be killed first, followed by Dana. Soon, a security guard arrived at the glass room where they were being held, but Dana stood in front of Martin. The guard ordered Dana to leave, but suddenly, a hand from Martin's lost sister grabbed the guard's foot. While he was distracted, Martin and Dana seized the opportunity to overpower and kill him. They took his weapon and fled. Just then, a woman's voice echoed over the broadcast. "I can only imagine your pain and confusion. What is happening to you is part of something much greater, something older than anything else. You have seen terrible things, an army of nightmare creatures. But they are nothing compared to what lies below. It is our duty to appease the ancient ones, and it is your role to be sacrificed to them. Let's get this party started." Chaos erupted as the monsters took over the base, capturing the fully armed security team. The entire facility descended into a state of panic. The halls turned into scenes of human slaughter, blood everywhere. In such a situation, taking one's own life might seem like the most dignified way to go. Desperate, the security team called for reinforcements, but the catastrophe was already beyond control. Even the surveillance room, once considered a safe place, was no longer secure. Suddenly, straw-like creatures broke in, creating havoc inside the control center. Meanwhile, as a giant bat burst into the room, Xavier and Kurt had no choice but to flee in terror. Witnessing the gruesome scene around them, they finally grasped the seriousness of the situation. They saw countless bodies being dragged underground, and their only option was to hide along the walls. But the horror of the massacre didn't stop. On the other side of the base, Toto managed to escape the surveillance room, but he ran into Dana. Without hesitation, Dana stabbed him with a dagger. As he lay dying, he begged Dana to finish the ritual and prevent human civilization from being wiped out. Continuing their escape, Dana and Martin stumbled upon an altar. To their horror, they discovered 5 sculptures on the wall, each one representing them. Dana finally accepted that the sacrificial ritual was real. Suddenly, a familiar voice filled the air. This ritual has existed in every culture, evolving over time, but the loss has always been required. We do what we can with what we have. It was all for the ancient gods who once ruled the earth. The other rituals around the world had already been completed, and if Dana and Martin managed to survive past the set time, the entire world would be destroyed. Dana considered the woman's words. If sacrificing herself could save the human race, there was nothing to hesitate about. But before that, she had to kill Martin. The wolf had retreated, and Martin wanted to ask about Dana's injuries but hesitated, fearing she would betray him. Suddenly, the wounded Dana opened her eyes, holding her breath to remain silent. Meanwhile, the fight between them continued, pushing them both into the abyss. The ground trembled violently, as if something massive was awakening beneath. Covered in blood, Martin quietly walked to the other side and sat down, waiting for the inevitable.